Welcome back everyone. Let's continue with level B2. B2 is a much more difficult level. It's similar to upper intermediate. So let's look at what descriptors at level B2 are like. For written interaction, we only have overall descriptors and correspondent descriptors. There is no descriptors available for notes, messages, and forms. What does this mean? It means that the highest level for notes, messages, and forms is B1, and learners at B1 level and upward can read all kinds of notes, messages, and forms effectively. Now, let's first take a look at the overall descriptors and the descriptors for correspondence. The descriptors for overall written interactions read: can express news and views effectively in writing and relate to those of others. The keywords in these descriptors are news and views, effectively, and relate to those of others means a learner can compare and contrast his viewpoint with others. For correspondence, B2 learners can write letters conveying degrees of emotion and highlighting the personal significance of events and experiences, and commenting on the correspondence news and views. It means they can express their emotions in more details, put an emphasis on events or experiences that are important to them, and the comment on others' viewpoints and news. If the descriptor sounds difficult to understand to you, we will spend some time reading some examples so that you can have a better sense of emails or letters at level B2. Now please look at the first task and the letter that answers the task. It's a letter from Olympia to her pen friend Mary about their plan to stay in the UK for 6 months. So, as you see, despite some mistakes, this is a really nice answer. The letter is well organized and it is clear what Olympia plans to do, so her friend will be able to help her. The writers also have achieved a polite tone in this writing, and the language errors are fairly minor. On the right, you can find making notes, which gives you better explanation of what errors are there in the letter. Suppose this is a piece of writing by one of your students. Can you try to suggest correction and improvement to this letter? Here is another example of a letter at level B2. Take some time to read the task and then responding letter. This is a letter from Emilia to a museum asking about some details to her club visit. The letter is very well organized as each paragraph deals with a specific topic, and there is good use of linking words and tenses to create some complex sentences. All the questions are clearly expressed and the tone is very polite, showing that the writer is well aware of the relationship to their recipient. The next part in this mini lecture is written production. There are a lot of more descriptors in the second scale than in the first scale of level B2. Take a look at the overall written production descriptors. It reads, can write clear, detailed text on a variety of subjects related to his field of interest, synthesizing and evaluating information and arguments from a number of sources. The keywords here are clear, detailed text, a variety of subjects, synthesizing and evaluating information and arguments. So, the descriptors doesn't just explain the linguistic ability of learners at level B2. It also indicates the cognitive ability as well, as students will need to show the ability in synthesizing and evaluating information and arguments from different sources. For creative writing, descriptors are divided into lower B2 and higher B2. The descriptors in higher B2 is can write clear, detailed descriptions of real or imaginary events and experiences, marking the relationship between ideas in clear connected text and following established conventions of the genre concerned. The keywords are clear, detailed descriptions, real or imaginary events and experiences, clear connected text, follow convention of the genre. It means that learners at level B2 can write about different topics in a coherent way, and the writings also reflects the genres it belongs to. In lower B2 description, we have two statements. The first one is can write clear, detailed descriptions on a variety of subjects related to his or her field of interest. The second statement is more specific, which is can write a review of a film, book, or play. Review is always considered a difficult genre because you need to understand the contents of the film or book or play first, then form an argument about it. Can you find out the difference between higher B2 and lower B2 descriptors in creative writing? While in higher B2 descriptor, we have marking the relationship between ideas in clear connected text and following established conventions of the genre concerned. Why this doesn't appear in lower B2 statement? It means that all B2 learners are supposedly able to read clear, detailed description of events and experiences, but only strong B2 learners can organize their writing in a coherent way. We will look at some examples of B2 descriptive writing and review so that you can compare and see the differences between level B1 that you have learned previously. This is an example of a story at level B2. The question is to write a story which starts and finishes with a given sentence. Grandma Joe would be proud of him. Read the story and notice the language. So, the story is about a boy, Billy, and it ends with the given sentence. The story also uses language typical in storytelling, such as a lot of adjectives and adverbs in its sentences. It was raining hard. Billy wasn't eaten today, so he was wet, hungry, and miserable. He saw some delicious red apples and quickly decided to steal them. Direct speech is also used in the story, like, "Hey, you!" shouted the shopkeeper. "I know you, Billy Brown. I would tell your mom." In addition, stories often focus on details and feelings, which you can find a lot in the story as well. So, this writing follows conventions of the genre, which is story writing with clear, detailed description about a boy, Billy, when his grandfather passed away. The ideas in the story are well connected and they happen in time order. So, the readers can find the story quite easy to understand and interesting as well. Here are some examples of reviews written by learners at level B2. The first one is a book review. Please spend some time reading the piece. This is a review of the book, The Remains of the Day. The author writes a review of a book to his friend, so he uses informal neutral tone in his writing. In this review, the organization of the idea is very clear. The author first mentions the title of the book in the introduction, then gives some comments and descriptions of the main characters, and concludes with a recommendation. He also comes up with a title for its review. Did you notice the language of the review? The author can use less common words and structures, such as, "Is that all there is to be?" So, bound by duty, never even given her slightest hint. The writing is sublimed. His behavior is mystifying. One of the most rewarding quests in literature. Here is a review of a very famous film, Harry Potter and the Secret Chamber. I'm sure you have read the story or watched the film, haven't you? Please read the film review. It also uses a rather informal to neutral tone, with personal pronouns such as "I have ever seen," "you can continue," or phrases such as "lots of," or "a little bit strange," "the cast is not bad." The text has a very clear organization. Each paragraph deals with one aspect of the film. It can use words that are typical of the filmmaking, such as saga, special effects, cast, visual elements. Other complex expressions or structures, such as one of the most entertaining fiction films, set in parallel world where many musicians live. The villains of the film, special powers, etc., show that the author had a good control of both vocabulary and grammar, and is a strong B2 learner. The last group of the descriptors are for reports and essays. Again, descriptors are divided into lower B2 and higher B2. Read the descriptors and pay attention to the keywords. The keywords in higher B2 descriptors for reports and essays are develops an argument systematically, appropriate highlight of significant points, relevant supporting details, evaluate ideas or solutions. It means that learners at B2 level don't just know how to organize their ideas in an essay or report, but even manages to structure their ideas in an appropriate or systematic way. They can also evaluate ideas or solutions to a problem. Again, this is not a descriptor that describes linguistic ability of a learner, but more of its cognitive and analytical ability. The descriptors for lower B2 remove the aspect of organization and only include the content in an essay or report. As compared with the second statement in higher B2, the lower one only requires learner to synthesize information and the arguments instead of evaluating ideas. Here are an example of B2 essay. This is an essay to describe about solution of the problem of environmental pollution. It had a title and headings for every part, which makes it very easy to follow. The essay uses a variety of sentence structures and works quite flexibly, which shows the writer good control of grammar and vocabulary. Ideas are developed in a logical way, with main points and supporting details. For example, with transport, the writer starts by mentioning the current situation that 100% of today's vehicles use petrol or diesel engines, adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. Therefore, we should switch to electric cars to reduce damage to the environment. This is a good example of a strong B2 essay. Here is a task that asks students to write a report to a magazine. Look at the task and then read the report that corresponds to the task. This is a report about a science museum. It is clearly organized with paragraphs. The following ones describe the museum in more details, and the last one is conclusion, in which the writers makes a recommendation. The body of the reports provide explanations and details to support the reason why the writer suggests this museum. The grammatical control is good. In fact, there are hardly any grammatical errors, and the range of vocabulary is pleasing. The only suggestion to make this report better is that the writer could think more about using headings for each of the sections. For example, introductions, facilitates, suggestions, and conclusion. While the previous one may be an illustration of lower B2 report, the exam will show you what a strong B2 report looks like. This is a report about transport in your city. It had very clear headings for each section, and the language is precise and flexible. The writer has a good range of grammatical structures, and he is ambitious in the vocabulary he uses. Another positive aspect is his use of linking phrases. However, on the other hand, unfortunately, another option would be regarding the trams to sum up, which helps his writing to flow nicely. To sum up, let's look at the table that summarizes characteristics of level B2. As you can see, learners at B2 can develop an argument, express abstract ideas, justify an opinion, synthesize and evaluate information. They can use a range of grammatical structures accurately, such as future perfect continuous, phrasal verbs, related clauses, reported speech, and narrative tenses. They can employ a variety of discord markers to organize their writing and select those that are appropriate for different genres. For vocabulary and topics, the range is same as with level B1, which are collocations and colloquial language about topics such as arts, books and literature, education, film, media, news, lifestyles, and current affairs. That is the end of the writing descriptors at level B2. Goodbye for now, and see you in the next mini lectures about assessing your students' writing.